Welcome back to 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast, a show focused on highlighting the illustrious Prairie View A&M University, the HBCU of Texas, by promoting SWAC and the HBCU experience, featuring your fellow PV Panthers, Roland Austin, Jay Cleasy, Big Mike Washington, three-time SWAC champ Gaati Werma, former drum major HBCU band historian Shaunetta Haskell, and Al Williams, driving the show from the Hill. Please subscribe and follow us on social media at 1876 SCP. And don't forget, we do it for the culture.
Welcome to the 1876 Sports and Culture Podcast, representing the HBCU of Texas, the one and only illustrious Prairie View A&M University. We have with us this week Joe Clay, Gaati Werma, Shaunetta Haskell, and the Dean of HBCU College Sports, Dr. J. Kenyatta. What's going on, y'all?
Run it back. I'm feeling it.
Run it back. Man, it's a lot going on. I'm just happy to be home this weekend, and I'm not in a car trying to shoot the show, so this is a good thing.
Dropping audio.
Man, I'm telling you. So I had a chance I was on the yard from Tuesday to Thursday this week for the career fair. And let me tell you, shout out to Brother Herb Thomas. They have stepped up the game. I think there were over 300 employers on site. The second floor of the MSC had at least 100 interview rooms, and we were running students in and out in interviews all day. I think my day, we had 2 booths for Toyota, man, and it was 30 minutes, every 30 minutes from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, and we took a 30-minute lunch. And I put it like this, I had my team at Texas A&M recruiting a couple weeks ago. They told me maybe 1 out of 4 interviews was good. Out of all the interviews we had one that was dud. One. These babies are tight and they're ready.
Excellent.
That's awesome. That's the news you want to hear.
Yes. I was happy about it. Now, we did have, it was only one thing that it started off bad on Tuesday. So we show up, right? And we trying to park. And every employer has got their booth set up already, right? We shipped our stuff beforehand. They set it up in the gym for us. But now we're bringing all of our giveaways, right? So we get on the yard, we park in the gold lot. Like that's the closest lot because it's in the gym. Here comes UPD.
Uh-oh.
You can't park here. Okay, well, where should we park? I don't know. You can't park here. They told us 100 cars, and there's more than 100 cars. Okay, bro, I didn't ask you all that. Where can we park? And can we drop our stuff off at the door? No, you can't go down there. And you got to park. We parked in the RV lot, bro.
Damn.
90-degree weather, all the employers trying to lug all this stuff. So, I immediately got hot on the wire. So they had it fixed the next day, but come on, UPD, y'all got to do better. This parking enforcement is just out of hand. And, we talked to our interns, they getting tickets, even though they have a parking pass. I know my kid every semester is $500 in tickets. It's ridiculous, man. We got to do something.
Now.
We got to do something.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I had my run-in with them for a home game, paying for a suite, continue to pay into Prairie View A&M University. I'm sheltered in one parking lot, no parking spaces there. I park, come back and get a ticket.
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand how the communication is not on point. I mean, all you ask is folks to communicate for you in such a way that you feel appreciated when you come to campus to pay it forward. And there's a disservice when you have one arm of the university that doesn't understand the cultural framework of how you move things forward. Now, obviously, nobody's trying to say that you're not supposed to police the campus. That is important. But the way that you police in a community-oriented organization is extremely important, whether it's a community in terms of university or a neighborhood if you would. These are things that you have to transition and make sense of, or it really makes no sense of you being on campus in terms of the leader of that organization.
Absolutely, 100% agree, Doc. Because I'm writing some letters this week, and I'm even putting a stamp on them. I'm not sending an email. They're gonna get a real letter from me. All right, but another bright spot, R2 status. So we just got R2 status last year, right? So I talked to the dean of the College of Engineering, Dr. Obioma, and it is starting to pay off. She said we now have over $700 million worth of grants.
Show me the money.
Wow.
Come on, baby, let's go. Let's go. The new building to be complete next year, man.
The engineering building you're talking about, right?
Yes, the new engineering facility will be ready next year. And I got a chance to preview some of the labs that they put on campus, and it is second to none. It's second to none.
So I just got one caveat to that. Can we get our professors or some new adjunct professors to come in with some experience, some on-the-job experience, some real-world applicable life experience that they can use when they're teaching in those labs? That's all I've asked. Just
now, I will say that is one of the things that Dean hit me up on. She said, look, I need you guys with all this industry experience to come back. She's like, just teach an adjunct class. I'll let you do it remote. So actually, my line brother, Mike Hogan, is teaching adjunct at UNT. So she reeled him in. I watched her close the deal. So I think he's gonna have a class at PV next semester. So she's on it. And there was a lot of folks in that college of engineering that weren't really moving in that same direction with her. She's cleaned house. So there's a lot of new blood, and she's bringing some folks in that are going to get some things done. So I'm really pleased with the progress I'm starting to see on the yard. So that leadership vacuum seems to have subsided a little bit.
I think that was the only thing that was missing from the engineering building and the department as a whole to me, was that industry experience, where a significant amount of professors with industry experience who could teach these kids what this knowledge that they were learning in the books, how they applied it directly to the field. Because the 70 to 75% of the oil and gas industry and petrochem is right here in Texas and Louisiana, but yet a bulk of the professors that we had never worked in those industries. So they didn't teach us about that. So when we graduated and many of us started working in those industries, it was all new to me. Something as simple as a P&ID. I didn't even know what that was when I got to oil and gas industry. So hats off to Dr. Obioma for improving the department and the engineering of the building as a whole.
And I think too, just to talk about that, what are those things that we can do? Is it a webinar just so that we can talk to the students? Maybe it's not being a professor, but hosting some type of workshops, because I want to tag on just basic project management skills, understanding your role as an engineer or as a software developer in product development, right? And so those are the things that I think about, just exploring. When I think about computer science majors and computer engineering majors, it's not just development. It's just exposing them to the other opportunities that they can have. In just like me, I knew I didn't want to be a software developer, but fortunately I had a brother-in-law who was telling my age at the time, it was called data processing. So I knew that I didn't have to be a computer developer, but I could still go into technology. So I would love to be a part of just exposing the students there, just to show them all of how broad the industry is and how broad that major is.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, Shaunetta, because I want to say it was 2 weeks ago, our classmate, Ed Drayton, who is the director of cyber for the largest drug distributor on the planet, McKesson, he gave a webinar for the students. I think it was on a Thursday evening. So those kinds of opportunities are going to become available, and it's going to be up to us to fill every one of those slots so that we can train these babies and kind of pay it forward.
That's the good thing with the R2 status, because when you get to R2 status, you got that additional money where you can bring in clinical professors or professors of the practice, what a lot of universities use in their terminology, to bring those professors in And I know exactly what you're talking about, because when we came through mechanical engineering, one of our benefits is we had a professor in our senior level practice course, I should say, that was in the practice. And it made
Dr.
a huge
Arnold.
difference in it. And hopefully it's not just in engineering, that it's across the university that they bring in these professors of the practice, if you would, or clinical professors, to make sure that they create the modern framework of educational platforms.
All right, Doc, I'm gonna keep you right here, because another big piece of news that came out from PV, the establishment of the African American Studies program. So, you know, you and I have been in class every Saturday for the last 133 Saturdays with Dr. Carr, who's the chair of Africana Studies at Howard, and Professor Hunter on their show that's on YouTube called In Class with Carr. And, you know, talking about some of the framework of Africana studies, from social structure, governance structure, you know, ways of knowing, movement and memory, and cultural meaning making. So talk about that and the importance of having that major at a HBCU.
I think it's huge, because the first thing is we automatically think in terms of HBCUs that Africana lens is used in the classroom, and that's not always the case. You know, for a while you might have had that natural structure there, but you need the critical framework of understanding Africana studies. So when you talk about maybe 6 HBCUs across the country, over 100 plus HBCUs, that becomes significant. And you can move it outside of Africana studies. I'm not sure that people understand that this is not just a discipline that fits in terms of the arts and science. I mean, arts. It can go into the sciences. Engineering, in terms of understanding medical framework, of understanding African American or African genealogy from that framework, and creating it across the curriculum is extremely important. So, for example, in sports studies, one of the things I did is update my syllabi that makes it a framework to bring that Africana studies when we look at HBCU sports from a cultural perspective. What does that look like when you talk about cultural mini making? So I think it is outstanding to see that we have that as a new degree program.
Absolutely. And one area that we know that we need a different approach. We maybe need to get into more of a governance structure when it comes to how we cover ourselves in media, right? When I say governance structure, for those who aren't familiar, that is who we are to each other. When I say social structure, that's who we are to other people. So as I'm talking about this governance structure in media, I'm looking at the case that happened this week with the coach from the Celtics, Udoka, and his fiance, Nia Long, how that was covered completely different from Brett Favre and his multi-million-dollar theft of funds from welfare recipients in the state of Mississippi. Completely different coverage.
Completely
you said different coverage. How about no coverage for one?
Yeah.
It wasn't different. It was just lack thereof for one.
Yeah, and I've heard people making excuses like, oh, he's not in the game anymore. We don't know his situation. It's, even though he's retired, it's no excuse to become a welfare queen. How they try to pinpoint and point to us. No, yeah, totally unfair.
We can be out of the game for 50 years, and if we get caught with a gram of crack cocaine, it's going to be all over ESPN, i.e. Lawrence Taylor. So
Warren Moon.
Yeah, out of the game for 25 years.
Saying.
Being retired is not an excuse for lack of coverage.
Yeah,
hold everybody accountable.
You know, the coach for the Celtics didn't break any laws.
None.
To me, that is between consenting adults, and that's between him and his fiance. It's none of our doggone business. What they do, it has nothing to do with the game. To me, it didn't deserve the level of coverage. And you know what talking about is just giving it play. I'm gonna drop it right there, because we know that did not smell right.
But before we leave that topic, the importance of this matter, of this subject, is it brings to light the importance of Black sports journalism. We gotta tell our own stories, even when it relates to sports. We have to tell our story when it relates to our lives in general. But since we're here we're talking sports, then we got to understand that there is space for us to enter this space on the sports journalism side. And I'm happy that Professor Vest and Professor Clomax in the mass communications department are opening up these opportunities for our current undergrad students in the mass communication department to inject themselves into this industry. So we making strides, we getting there, so we can start telling our own stories across the board.
It's one of the most important things that we can do in terms of understanding the lives of our people is to tell our own story. I mean, whatever it is in terms of counter narrative story, or even more important, just get in front and tell your own story. It's the reason that I went into sports communication from just the sports studies, is to make sure that I could put a framework of how I wanted to see our stories told.
Absolutely.
So true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's very important. And then one last thing I want to talk about before we move on to some football. Did y'all see the I don't know if it's the Majorette squad or whatever it was for you from USC? They kind of look like some black foxes out there.
Yeah, they look like some wannabe black foxes. You know, social media was hot and heavy. They critiqued it very hard, and I don't want to dig in deeper to that specific young lady who started that basically a black fox wannabe program at USC. For those who may not know what we're referencing, but I want to look at it from a perspective of sharing our culture at PWIs and trying to replicate it. Can it be done, and is it right to do so? What say you?
I don't think it can be done. I've seen it on many levels. I certainly don't think it can be done. I think there is an open question in terms of whether it should be done and how it should be done. But I think it goes back to the Africana studies, those programs, to make sure that you're educated in your area. Because often the folks that are doing it or trying to do it are folks that really don't accept their genealogy in any framework. So for those that don't, it's harder to rationalize with them and try to have them understand in a lot of ways why it's not good to share that. And then you have the other lens, which folks literally steal it, the appropriation framework we talk about. So there's a lot of levels to this, and it's real challenging. But I think most important is that we're getting back to the Africana studies lens and make sure that you understand those frameworks that Alan talked about earlier.
Key points.
Yeah, very, very good point. And my point is, it's always interesting to me for people who chose to go to PWIs, but it still seems like you want that HBCU experience, because I have a number of friends that went to PWI. So it's interesting to me how they now have a Black homecoming. I don't understand why you just don't go to your school's homecoming and hang with your friends, right?
Because they ain't got no friends.
Separate weekend just for Black homecoming.
Oh, there's a Black homecoming at that PWI?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Black graduation. It's a lot of it. It's a whole study into itself. Where they create literally Black spaces to try to feel more comfortable where they are. So I don't think there's a great answer to it. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm so glad.
I went to PBU.
And I do. I get it, but part of me is like, for some people, the rationale for going to the PWI is because they wanted that diversity. And I was even told at one point, HBCUs, that's not the real world.
Yeah, I think you hit it on something right there. I think you got a lot of folks that are confused. We don't want to really talk about it like that. But when you don't have yourself, right, then you're confused. Because I do know there are some folks that go to a historic, what I like to call historically white college university. Yeah. But they go in there wide open, and I'm actually for like graduate studies, where they had a base at an HBCU and they're just getting additional. They go there to get what they need. They're not trying to share whatever. I mean, it doesn't mean that they're not welcoming and open, but they're not there to commiserate and restructure the institution in such a way that they recreate this small space that is HBCU-like, if you would, right? And so when you have folks that are not assertive about who they are or learned about their history, then it's easier for them to get lost and not understand what that looks like.
Well, we can just say as simple as this. There's a bunch of folks who think white ice is colder than black ice, and that's why they go.
See?
That's part of it.
Ooh. Well, I think it does go back to that framework that we talked about when we say movement and memory. You know, a lot of times there are some things that you just know that are inherent and you're not quite sure when you learn them, how you learn them, or why, but there are certain things that you just know. And that is what I refer to as like movement and memory. There are certain looks that can happen between two people. We can have a whole conversation and not say a word, and that comes back from that movement and memory. Like if I give you this look, you know what that means. So there is, in the governance structures within those PWIs that those students are trying to recreate, there is some movement and memory that they are remembering. They're just not in a place where they can really get those good governance structures. The thing about an HBCU is we are governance structure institutions. So they're trying to create governance structure spaces where we have the whole institution.
Tacit knowledge built in.
There it is. All right, let's take a quick break and let's come back and talk about this football game.
2nd and 5. First to the hole up the middle and breaks free. The 20, the 10. Touchdown, Prairie View. And it is Tristan Waters.
And we are back to talk some football. We got that dub.
Back.
They had my pressure up, but we got the dub. So
what'd you say? You got up washing dishes? You was
man,
pacing
I was
and whatnot?
washing dishes so I wouldn't be pacing, man. I couldn't take it, bro. I'm like, come on, man.
We pulled it out though, 24-15, man.
Yes.
Went down, took the ride. I was happy first and foremost that we weren't on a bus. We took a chorta. That was like, I was like, okay, we starting this thing off right. I appreciated that. The boys got off the plane, ready to play.
Yes, absolutely. And I heard that the band had thought about attending, but you know, with State Fair coming up next week and Southern the week after, they decided not to make this trip. But overall performance, Doc, what did you think?
I thought it was tremendous. One of the things that just stood out for me the most is the fact that the defense continues to play really well. Joe Clay brought this to my attention very early that you're watching this defense in terms of what they did to a top 5 program and holding them 30 points below that. But then against Alabama State, it showed up again in the stat that Alabama State was 0 for 10 on the 3rd down efficiencies and 4th down efficiencies. Officially 0 for 8 on 3rd and 0 for 2 on 4th down. It means you shut out that team in terms of any time they needed a big play to keep the chains moving. They couldn't get it done against the defense. And I thought when the offense had a couple of glitches here and there, the defense, whether it was on short field, quick turn on downs in terms of a turnover, they came out and made some plays and literally shut down a pretty solid offensive Alabama State team.
Yeah, I think that defense was really impressive. And I looked at that game and it was more of they bent, but they did not break. You know, there were a couple of short yardage or short field possessions that Alabama State had. And somehow, some way, the defense came up with a play. So I was really impressed with the tenacity of that defensive line, getting that pressure on them. The defensive backs, nobody was just laying down on the ground. You were going to get hit on the way. So I like the fact that they were laying that wood on them.
Yeah, I think Alabama State was going to move the ball. I was pretty certain of that once I saw D. Davis started at quarterback. And for those who don't know D. Davis, he's one of the greatest high school quarterbacks to come out of the state of Texas. He started his career at Auburn. Everybody wanted him. Alabama State was fortunate enough to get him. So we knew he was going to move the ball. He was going to scramble, get out of the pocket, and keep the chains moving. But their front seven, not only the front seven, but the secondary came to play. Al, you mentioned they were hitting folks. Well, heck, the leading tackler was our nickelback, Tariq Moore. He had 13 tackles. So it was hitting going all over the field. I feel very confident with this defense going into SWAC play. I'm not afraid of Grambling next week, man. I think they're ready and they're on a mission.
The other thing, to your point, in terms of the overall team, going back to offense as well, it is a good trend. They only had 29 yards in penalty, 4 penalties, which is a significant of a team that is really solid, well coached. Kudos for what went play in that game. And you had Alabama State that only had 7 penalties. So that's an indicator that you needed to play really disciplined in that game, and you saw that. I want to give a shout out to Trey Collins in terms of what he was able to do. He was very efficient from that quarterback position. His ability to navigate that offense and get out of plays, how to make plays when he extends them, but also how to look down the field and throw the ball down the field with a wide receiver core that is coming on, that needs a little more work in there. And his patience with that group is really solid. And what they're able to do, run the ball, is still a hallmark and really solid. When you get 126 yards, that's pretty solid between a couple of guys. Stewart came back 10 of 29, and you had Antoine 12 of 66 total yards in terms of what they were able to get done with a couple of big yard plays in there. So they can stretch that defense in terms of what they do on offense. So I thought it was overall a very solid play. When you go to those long road trips, you're able to get the dub against the East. One thing that people didn't realize last year, the East had the West number. So I was very curious, was that a trend that was going to continue this year? And wasn't the case, at least for Prairie holding up their side of it, getting it done against Alabama State.
Absolutely. And, I was really impressed. You watched like the in-between plays, and you can see that leadership from Conley. He is the leader of that team. There is no question. He can get in the guy's face. He can, he's pointing and folks are moving. And I just like his maturity. And I think, he's made his bones. So
yes, sir.
This
4 years on campus.
He is ready to rumble. And I'm here for it because it's been a long time since we had somebody that's kind of made their bones on the yard that can come in and take over a team and lead them to a victory like this. Because there was a couple of points in that game where I got a little nervous. And like I said, I started washing dishes because I was scared. But I think he was able to keep his composure, lead that team. I don't think they ever lost confidence. You never saw anybody with their shoulders slumped over or walking with, that lack of confidence and lack of swag. So I was impressed with his leadership.
As we have mentioned, or as you've probably heard PV fam say over the last year or so, this ain't the same old PV. This is not for multiple levels. One, the confidence, holding your head up high and not getting down once you have a couple down plays. Another thing is once Dr. Veal, you mentioned about the penalties. I have to kind of eat some crow. I'm gonna equate one thing to another, and you tell me if I'm right on this or not. We have a 3.0 GPA minimum requirement for student athletes to step foot on a yard. We won't even recruit you if you don't have a 3.0. And I was adamantly against that requirement, but I submit that maybe perhaps that has forced us to recruit more intelligent athletes, football players who are more cerebral on a football field and perhaps commit less mental errors. What do you think? Can I make that connection?
I feel that I hate to use the white-facing academic intellectual component about it, but I do like the fact that you're talking about the discipline level. And I think that's where you're ultimately going with this, is when you do recruit a player of a certain academic level, that there tends to be a discipline level, which is certainly important in this game. I do want to give one shout out again. Y'all had a great interview with Reyes, and he missed a field goal early, but I think it's important to see when a kid can come back and overcome that. And he didn't let it lag around, and he came back and kicked a 46-yarder, which is solid in terms of the college game. Anytime you get past 40 yards, oftentimes there might be a little question mark. To come back after not getting one done and getting it a big kick, I thought that was important to see that in terms of that game.
And it did not appear that Coach Bubba McDowell hesitated to let him send him out there and kick that field goal either.
Great point, Joe. Great point.
All right. And with that, we're going to close out football. And all I got to say is I'm with Bubba now.
See y'all in Dallas. I will be at the Cotton Bowl, baby. Let's get it.
Yeah.
Let's roll. Put on your boots.
back to talk some band. Now, Shaunetta, I know we didn't have a matchup between PV and ASU this weekend, but they did stream the halftime on the YouTube, and all I gotta say is the honeybees.
Yes.
That boy love him some honeybees.
They are definitely entertaining. I hate they didn't go, because you're right. I watched the halftime. I thought it was a decent show. I think that it would have been a nice battle. I do think I said it last season, I believe. I think one of the things that happens is because Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Alcorn, those aren't those known rivalries. There's just not that intense desire to travel. But we actually, when I was there, we went to Alabama. So I really hope, I know there's always budget things of that nature, but I definitely understand with Grambling and Southern coming up, wanting to stay back, But I think it would have been a good battle. Again, like your honeybees, I was a little afraid. If you catch it on YouTube, the honeybees doing a little trick. I was praying for the young men.
They did a whole flip and landed on the lap of the drum majors.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Strong knees, strong. But what I am excited about is, yes, we do have the state coming up this weekend. And so what I did do is went and I looked at some footage of Grambling State. And I definitely have to start out by saying, because I love the fact that the world fame is led by a female band director. Okay. I also love the fact that there is a female drum major who's actually from Dallas. So that's all the pleasantries I'm going to give them, but kudos to them for that. So what did I do? To prepare, I went and I looked at Grambling's performance during the Battle of the Bands, and I looked at their halftime performance against Jackson State. And so it's Grambling, right? So I'm not concerned as far as with the halftime show. I'm rocking with the storm. I did pay attention to Grambling when they did the 0 in the 5th quarter against Jackson State, and I'm still not really concerned with PV. I think it just still comes down to song selection. I think that because Grambling it's just an exciting time in HBCU band land, because everyone is bringing their A game. Right. There used to be a time where I would say, man, they're going to kill them. Like Southern is going to kill them, or PV is going to kill them. And I can't make that statement. I think that, if you get a chance to look at the Jackson State and Grambling, I think it was their 0 quarter. Grambling is playing Adina Howard's Freak Like Me, and they did a run that made me get woo. Yeah, it is nice. It's it was nice. And so I think if we go out there playing like new school, because Grambling is coming with the R&B classics. And so I think if we go out there and we play new school, then a lot of people are going to go with Grambling, because I think what we have to remember is, before I can groove with you, I have to realize what you're playing. So if I don't know what you're playing, it's kind of hard for me to get into it. So I know we have a tendency a lot of time to play a lot of the new school. So I think if they come with that approach, playing more new school than classics, then next week I'm gonna definitely have to say I think Grambling took it. But there are some things things I'm looking forward to, though. I really hope that with this game, I hope I see the eye of the storm. I hope that the drum majors do a feature. I hope Swamp is somehow incorporated into the show, either during the halftime show or when they march off and do that sideline blowdown. I wish we had an answer for that GSU chant. It's jamming. It is. They're likely gonna play it as they're leaving the field, or they're gonna play it in the stands. And when they do, you watch how their fans react to it. So, but again, if you ask me who am I rolling with, I'm still rolling with the Storm. I like Grambling, but I just like PV more, and it's not because I went to PV, right? But I think they're just going to put on a better show on the field. My only thing really is song selection. in the stands.
Yeah, the thing that I've noticed is the arrangements. You know, the arrangements with some of these classic R&B songs, just the music is more complicated and it has more depth to it versus some of the new school. So like even Texas Southern, I heard when I heard them play that Stevie Wonder, that run and that bad boy, like you said, you like, ooh.
Yep. Ooh, yeah.
So, you know, that is very critical to really how to determine who's going to win or lose is who's arranging the music. You've got, like you said, play to your strengths. If your strength is that baritone section, you got to give them something.
Yeah.
Let them eat.
Yeah. I just think you cannot take a week off, and you can't take any band for granted. And yeah, I've never really focused on Gremlin as far as in the stands. They have certain songs I've always liked to hear them play, but they, you know, it's, if you look at the fifth quarter with them against Jackson State, the people that are saying Jackson State won it, you're probably just fans because Gremlin shocked you.
Oh, I love this. I'm gonna take this. You know, I do my marching sport poll, top 10 poll rankings, and the winners and losers. I don't do this, you know, voting where everybody gets to get excited and they get to cheer and vote for their team, popularity contest. No, you have to march against somebody, and then there's going to be a winner and a loser. Zero, quarter, fifth quarter, and halftime. I added up, so I'm taking notes, Shaunetta. I got everything you said, and it will go into the poll, and we'll drop the top 10 this week again and see how it changes in terms of those top 5. But I'm taking notes, so I appreciate your insight because I know you're an expert in this area.
And Shaunetta, just to let you know, Dr. Cavill did not have TSU in his top 10, but he did have Howard University in his top 10, which I had a problem with, and I told him I was going to tell on him. So how do you feel about that?
Let me make sure that before you answer this, let me set this up.
Okay.
I had them losing. Remember, I said there's wins and losses, so there's matchups. So you don't get in this poll just because you performed solo by yourself or you went to the Texan game. You had to perform against an HBCU in a matchup. So Labor Day Classic, Texas Southern Prairie View performed. I had them taking the L. Now, I heard that they were really good in Arlington. It was close, but I heard the edge went to Southern. So you're 0-2. It's tough to be in the top 10 poll when you're 0-2. Now, there's more contests coming, but again, there's wins and losses. So just because they good, it ain't my fault because the competition they had early put them at 0-2. So now Shaunetta, take it away.
No, I mean, I think the Ocean has gotten better. I can't comment. I haven't seen Howard this season, so I can't say whether or not they deserve to be there or not. But I mean, I do know that. But like I said, there are a ton of bands. I mean, long gone are the days where we say you can't top Southern, you can't top, you know, Jackson State. They can be topped.
So Howard is they're fortunate because of the schedule they played. They took an L at the MEAC-SWAC Challenge against Alabama State. Then they had Hampton. They beat Hampton. Hampton struggled to force. They're not quite ready for prime time. That's not my fault. That's who they matched up. They got the win. They 1-1. Then they played Morehouse. Yeah, Division II, strong, you know what I'm saying? They wasn't quite ready. New York, Howard got it done, got the house. So Howard's in at 2-1. Again, that's who they competed against thus far. It doesn't mean they're going to be top 10 at the end of the season. This is not a projection poll. This is week to week. Who did you play heads and head, wins and losses? Y'all figure it out. I'm just telling you, all y'all get excited about these bands. Y'all want to vote for your team? Go vote for your team. Now, if you want to know what the real deal is, wins and losses, come check me out on Thursday when we drop it on Dr. Bill's Inside the HBC Sports Lab with the help of Shaunetta giving me background notes. So y'all know I'm trained well. I went to the expert. That's all I got.
Period.
That's it. That's it. All right, we're going to leave it there. I got to give a shout out to one of our listeners that I ran into at the career fair, Frat Eldridge. He listened to the show and he said, he said he wanted to get some of that. He said he wanted some of that Coach Bubba cake. So I told him, you know, let's hold that till after the championship and then we can try and get Coach to cook us some cake. But shout out to Eldridge. Appreciate you listening, bro. So let's take a break and we'll be right back with I'm So Glad. And welcome back. We are back with I'm So Glad, and we have with us our head volleyball coach, Coach Tyler. What's going on?
Hey, how y'all doing?
All right.
Doing great. Thanks for
you
joining
know-
us.
Yes,
Yeah.
thanks for having me back.
Now, you know, you were the first coach we ever had on the 1876 Sports and Culture podcast, so we are happy to have you back.
Oh man, really? I love
Yes,
first.
you are number one.
I
So-
love that.
So, Coach, we follow you on Twitter, and all last spring you said, "Don't worry, I got some dogs coming." So we starting to see you got some dogs.
I do. Yeah, it's coming together. It's a lot of freshmen. We have a few upperclassmen in there, some seniors, but it's really the freshmen that have came in as expected to make a super huge impact. And so now that we've gone through our regular season and about to hit conference, we're kind of peaking at the right time, I would say. Obviously, we had a really huge win against Lamar, which has never happened in the history of the program. So that was really huge for us. And I think a good confidence booster for them to let them know, basically, you can play with anybody at the end of the day, right? And so we have a break right now. And so we're not back into our TSU match on Thursday. So we've just been breaking down in practice and getting some skill stuff together to get ready for conference run.
All right. I see you got a player of the week also for the SWAC.
Yes, she was Kylie Owens. She was the newcomer of the week the very first week. And then she was the offensive player of the week this past week. And she is like our number one go-to player. She's super good freshman, but
True
she
freshman.
puts the ball down. Yeah, she's really good. She's actually young. She's only 17. Yeah, so she's really a spark offensively for us. She plays 6 rotations. She has a really good serve too. So I think she's leading the conference in almost every category right now. Yeah, so.
And I hate Mike isn't here with us, but he would love this stat. She had 70 kills in 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, she put up major numbers. It started with the Lamar match. She had 28, which is a huge deal, actually. You know, people actually average hitters, 15, 18 kills, on an average for her position. But she went crazy in that Lamar game, and she just kept it going through the weekend. So we're expecting big things from her to continue, through this conference run. But she's definitely a force to be reckoned with for sure.
So, Coach, as we start rolling into this conference play, we know that, the atmosphere in that Baby Dome for women's volleyball is something kind of electric, especially when band members start showing up and give you a little band section. So I saw a couple of weeks ago where a lot of the freshmen showed up with their, representing their dorms.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy. Our home games have been just, I can't even describe. There's been so many people who have been coming. And then our goal members club, I mean, they obviously get everybody involved. And I know throughout as the game goes, like their section gets bigger and bigger. And we've also had a lot of local high schools coming to our games too. And so with the TSU game coming up on Thursday, we have 4 high schools that will be there. And so, yes. And so that was a huge thing for me over the summer, and just getting with these high schools, and whether it was just going to, their games, or if they were having some type of like exposure camp or something like that, I was making sure that I was showing my face there. And so in turn, they've been emailing me and saying, hey, can my team come? And not just the varsity, they're bringing their freshmen through their varsity. And so that's been really awesome to experience, and then having them on campus, getting a picture with the team and things like that. So just trying to create that relationship and getting the fans in the stands. But it's been crazy in there. It's been awesome.
That's amazing, because we know that recruiting can be a grind, especially when you've got to kind of split your time between going to a school game versus some of these invitationals through AAU. And I mean, you probably need a bigger budget for a recruiting trail than the football team.
Oh, so. Man, listen, we working on pennies, okay? But we got to get it done. But we got to get it done. And fortunately, being in Texas, in Houston, there's so many good high school programs here, as well as the club team. So we don't have to travel too crazy. We go to like the big qualifiers and stuff like that, but there's a lot of homegrown talent. But contrary to popular belief, Texas kids don't like to stay in Texas. Not the first year. They love to go far. And then of course, the next semester, the next year, like, hey coach, you still got a spot? And I'm like, yeah, it happens. But it's nice to get to some of the high school games. We have a kid, actually, one of our 23 recruits, she's from Indiana, but she moved down here. And so she's at Cy Ranch, and we got to go watch her play in a thriller on Tuesday. So that was nice to get, in a high school gym and see some competitive volleyball. So that was nice.
So coach, how has the NCAA rules, with the transfer portal, has that changed your recruiting approach? Are you still trying to recruit kids out of high school, or do you more, look to get some crossover kids? What has it changed?
Woo! It's starting to. We love a good high school kid. I did bring in a pretty big group of freshmen this year because I have some seniors leaving out and then some JUCO kids in there. And so I wanted a base of freshmen to grow through the program, but I'll definitely this incoming season look for someone in the transfer portal because they've already had that experience. They've gotten it with freshmen, there's that freshman curve. And so I wanted this year to be that year that I brought in some freshman dogs. And then if I can get a couple of kids out of the transfer portal, then I would love to do that too. But you kind of have to, right, to stay with the times, because that's what everybody's doing, right? They're taking from the experience that's already there. And then you are getting a lot of kids that are from bigger programs who are like, hey, let me transfer to HBCU. And if, you've had Big 10, Big 12, Pac-10, that type of experience, that's only going to be better for us on our level. So you got to go with what the competition's doing. So I think everybody's headed that way. But this year I did bring in a bunch of freshmen to grow through the program. So I'm excited about that.
And I love that. That's a wonderful approach. Coach TaCho, I was really excited to have you on the show because not only are we friends, but I've always admired your game. I had a chance to watch you. We played our time at Prairie overlapped.
Ooh, so long ago, girl.
Time is flying, okay? And you were an elite player of the year, SWAC champ of the volleyball team. And your teammates set a winning standard at the time that carried you all throughout, despite the odds. So do you ever find yourself comparing your current players to yourself and your team from when you all were champions or coming up?
Honestly, when I first started coaching for a number of years, I did. But that really was like I would say probably a bad approach, right? Because the generation is different. Mental health is on the forefront. With everything. And then also with this generation, it's a generation of entitlement. And so they don't want to work for nothing. Right? Everything
You're not supposed to say that out loud.
I know she said the part out loud.
I keep it real. I keep it real.
Yeah.
I tell them the same thing. I say, y'all got to work, And so I changed my approach, right? And I really made it about what I could get out of them and what they could do, and not so much what I could do. Because I know as a player, we didn't have everything that they have with the weight room and the strength coaches and all this different stuff in the travel that they get to do. And so we had to grind it out. And so I understand the grind, right? And so I understood what it was going to take for me to be successful on the team and what my teammates were willing to do for that success. And I have to realize that not everybody's built like that. And so although I demand that at bare minimum, their work ethic is there, I don't necessarily compare anymore, because it's like, what can I get out of you? Right. Because I know you're not me. And so when I changed that approach, I found that I became a better coach, in my opinion.
And that's so amazing, because I think a lot of coaches struggle to kind of make that transition or that shift and connect with these new style of players, and it's showing across the board. So the fact that you are approaching it from every angle is so incredible. In your 8th season, 15th year on campus, you've seen a lot and you've been able to adjust and keep up. So I want to ask you, how do you keep your players motivated, during the lows, and keep them level during the highs? I know you have strong assistant coaches and Coach Jefferson and now Coach Jimenez, but what approach do you take?
Yeah. So what I started doing, well, I'll bring it back to the summer. I went to this convention called HBCU, and it's all females from every different sport and administrators. And basically they bring in all of these women to talk to us from the NCAA, from coaching programs, like the USC basketball coach came and talked to us. We had I think Colorado's AD. So just powerful women, and pouring into us and saying, you guys are still needed. And that was so huge for me, because I was really kind of tapering off on the coaching side of things, because it is a huge change for me to be able to make that shift. And so after I left that conference, I was just so empowered, and made it about the game, yes, but like what happens after that, right? So win or lose, right? We still got to wake up tomorrow, and we still got to work, and we still got to go toward our goals. And so after games, we do like team bonding, right? Whether it's like one night we were like in the hotel and just playing cards, or we were doing taboo, and just letting them know that like, regardless of what happened on the court, we're still good, right? And I think sometimes players can take what happens on the court personally, and it's like, it's not personal, right? It's just wins or losses and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we're still a team, and we have to like each other, and we have to bond. And so I incorporated that, which was to me a huge difference. And it kind of, for me and them, I think took the load off of, man, this was a disappointing loss, or man, even though this was a great win, we still got to go and, you know, be a team. And so I think that helps a lot. And then personal relationships. There's a lot of athletes, you know, that come to my office and talk to me personally, not even with volleyball related stuff. And so having that open door policy helps, because they understand it's not, even if coach got on my butt all day in practice, if life is coming at me, I can still go and talk to her. And I think that's super important. And I also tell their parents to instill that in them as well, that you can always go talk to your coach regardless of what's going on. And so I think that helps with the motivation piece. They're a pretty hype squad in general. You know, so they're pretty electric to watch, but just more talking, right? And less just all the time. It's just like, hey, this is what I need you to do. And then also helping them get their volleyball IQ up. I think that's a piece that a lot of people miss, because they just play. And then they get to us and it's like, man, I don't really know the game like I thought I knew the game, right? And that's daunting for people, right? Because maybe that means you're not playing. Maybe that means you're not traveling, right? But at the end of the day, it's about the team, right? And then helping them understand what their role is, right? And so I think that helps with keeping them motivated. So even if you're not traveling, you didn't make the travel team, you know that you still got to bust your butt, because we have to emulate what we're going to see when we play other people. But if you're worried about, oh, I'm not traveling, then you're not going to be any good for the team. And so I think that helps.
Oh, that's good, Coach Tyler. Keep it up. Keep it up.
I'm trying. We're trying to make this SWAC run. Oh, I'm excited for the season to get started.
Coach, talking about the SWAC run and how important this home crowd environment is, and how it's taken off to the next level. For those that haven't had the experience of following the team on the road, can you talk about, from a SWAC perspective, some of the other environments that are really, that lather the players up, or you have to get maybe these freshmen ready to go in certain environments? What are some of the better environments, not quite on Prairie View's level, but other environments that are great in the SWAC?
I would say Grambling, for sure. Their sport teams pour into their facility. They're coming in fresh off the field, you can tell, or, fresh off the baseball field or something like that. And so their student athlete support of one another is super huge there, and they talk a lot of crap. So, we got to let them know, hey, this ain't like high school and stuff. They gonna talk about you. They gonna have your name. And if you don't play, you're gonna get the worst of it, So be prepared. But to me, that's the old SWAC for me. So I think it's funny, it's what it is. To me, it's HBCU. But Grambling, for sure. Jackson State has a really good crowd too. But their volleyball team has been really good the last, several years.
Yes.
And then when we went to FAMU last year, they actually had a pretty good crowd as well. But I think with volleyball, a lot of the facilities that we play in are smaller than what the Baby Dome is. And so it packs a bigger punch. So like Alcorn has a smaller gym, so they fill it up, which is nice to see. But now seeing kind of like Grambling's playing in their bigger facility now, and still seeing a huge crowd there. And then obviously TSU, especially when we play them, it's super packed. Yeah. But I would say volleyball, it's a fun sport. More people are getting into it. And so the support, I would say, around the SWAC is pretty dope.
Awesome. Great sharing it. SWAC culture overall.
Oh yeah.
Coach, we appreciate you joining us. It's always a pleasure. Whenever you feel like you need to come back and you got something to share, especially when you get some more of them dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Playing with you, however you want to, Coach. You got to open
anytime. I'll always make time for y'all. It's always great. Make sure y'all tune in on Thursday when we play TSU in the Baby Dome. So it'll be streamed on pvpanthers.com if y'all can't make it in person. But it kicks off our conference, and no better way to do it than our crosstown rivals. So we're excited. Absolutely.
And everybody follow the PV volleyball team on Twitter at PVAMU VolleyB, VOLLEYB. So follow them on Twitter. It is, when certain teams, certain sports have Twitter accounts, and the Twitter feed is kind of dry. Volleyball ain't dry.
Oh, we lit. It's the same on our Instagram. It is crazy. I literally built it from scratch, because I felt like our athletics page wasn't pubbing us enough. And so now to have almost 3K followers is really crazy.
Keep it hot, Coach.
I'm trying. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right,
thanks for having me. Yes, appreciate y'all. Y'all have a good rest of the day.
Good luck on this play. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
We are back with the We Ready shout outs. So Joe, I'm going to start with you. Who do you have?
Man, we got to give a shout out to Kylie Owens, true freshman volleyball player. She was voted the SWAC Offensive Player of the Week, and I think she also got the SWAC Defensive Player of the Week. She had Mike's favorite stat in sports, 70 kills. She had 53 digs and 4 blocks. She done stepped on a yard, and she is ready.
She ready. 17 years old.
Yes. Doc, who you got?
I'm going to give a shout out to Mike in terms of the data points, since he let me grace and have a piece of his time on here. I'm going to shout out the Prairie A&M defense. When you have a loose quarterback that is putting up points and you basically hold them to 15 points and allow it to get done, with a special shout out to Logan Jackson with that interception, a senior, 6 foot, 185 pound from Dallas, Texas, as he goes home this week. Give him a specific shout out for getting that interception, his hands on the ball, taking care of business.
You ready?
Ready.
All right. I want to give a special shout out to our frat brother, Herb Thomas, for the great, fantastic career fair that PV put on this week. I want to see more of it. That was a big level up from last year. Herb, you ready?
You ready?
All right, Shaunetta, let's try this. I'm ready.
Victory cigar.
Yes.
All right. PV.
You know.
I was early.
Joe.
Oh.
What? What'd I do?
It wasn't me. Thank you.
See?
Al was definitely early.
I was early.
Oh, okay.
I need the metronome. What happened to the metronome? All right, y'all. We out. All right.